Good evening, everyone. I'm Grant Cunningham, and welcome to Training Talk here on Personal Defense Network. This is the show where we talk about, we talk about you, actually, your life, and how to protect it. In the next hour, we're going to explore how you can prepare and equip for the worst case scenario and keep you and your family safe. And that's the kind of the bottom line, isn't it? Now, we don't do politics or religion on this show, and you're not going to hear conspiracy theories or fringe wacko commentary, just reliable information that you can put it to use right now. It's the reasonable and responsible approach to self-defense and personal security, and we hope that you like it. And hey, if you do like it, if you do enjoy what we're doing here, if you like the reasonable and responsible adult approach to self-defense, would you do me a favor? Share this show with your friends and your family, your neighbors, your coworkers, everybody on your social media contacts. I'd sure appreciate it if you did, and I'm sure that they'll appreciate that you thought enough of them to include them in the great information that comes out here on Training Talk. So thank you for being here tonight, and I don't know about how it is where you are, but it is warm here in the state of Oregon tonight, and we are in the midst of a very unusual heat spell. We're not used to this here, so I'm sweating just a little bit tonight, and I've got my tactical hippie water bottle full of ice water. You can hear that, just to keep me cool and hydrated. And like I've said before, personal defense is more than just shooting bad guys. Keeping yourself fit and healthy is a big part of that. And in fact, we're actually going to talk about that a little later in the show tonight, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So on tonight's show, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to take a look at some viewer emails that came in, some interesting some interesting things that came up about joining gun clubs and that kind of thing. We got an interesting question about concealed carrying while under the influence, but under the influence of what is the question. I will simply tell you that the email came from Colorado and let you make your own guesses about that. And in the second half of the hour, we're going to talk about physical fitness for self-defense. And I'm the last guy probably to be talking about physical fitness for self-defense. I mean, I'm working at losing I'm down now. I've only got about 15 more pounds to lose, but I'm working on losing weight, getting in better shape. So I'm kind of the last guy to talk about, but I do have an expert coming on, a guest expert coming on in the second half of the hour to talk about defensive fitness, what it is, and how to get it. So be sure and stick around for that, because I think it's going to be a really great conversation. But first, I want to rant a little bit about some things that came up here on social media, particularly in the last week or two, and they all revolve around the idea of safety, and specifically in this particular case, gun safety. In the last couple of weeks, we've had several incidents. We had, and you may have heard about the lady down in Florida, I believe, who was shot and killed while attending a citizen police academy, 73-year-old woman, and she was shot and killed by a police officer who thought that he had loaded blanks in his firearm to do a force-on-force demonstration, and unfortunately she died when a live round was in the gun instead of the blanks that he expected. We had another situation where a police officer was supposedly going to fire blank rounds in a school to simulate an active shooter incident, and unfortunately had a live round in the gun. Luckily, nobody was injured, but he did discharge a live round. And if it seems like I'm picking on the police, that's not my intention. Those are the two that came up. But in the private sector this week, we had some indictments handed down in a case in North Carolina, I believe it was, where some instructors were having students do malfunction drills in a classroom as opposed to being on the range. One of a live round got mixed in, and unfortunately it fired and it went through a wall and killed the owner of the gun store. that was there, and there were indictments handed down this week on that. So gun safety is foremost on my mind, and what really I think bothers me is the fact that as I talk about these on social media and I talk with people about them, the lack of understanding about what safety really is when we talk about gun safety in a training environment. And it revolves around the idea that safety is a concept, and it's a concept that we need to understand. And the idea is this: the benefit of anything that we do, and whether it's a drill or a whole training class or anything, the benefit that we derive of that has to substantially outweigh the risks that we take in participating in that activity. Let me give you an example. For instance, whenever I go to the range, I take these with me, my earmuffs, and they shield my ears from gunfire, because we know that loud noises like gunfire and rock and roll music, and some of us owe a hearing loss to that, but loud noises like gunfire do damage hearing, and the damage is cumulative. That means that each exposure to damaging sound causes deterioration in the hearing on top of what was there before. And it's also irreversible. And anybody who's got a little bit of a hearing loss knows that it's irreversible. I mean, you can get hearing aids and that kind of thing, but it is irreversible. So there's a danger there. There's a danger from the loud noise of the gunfire. If for instance, I go to the range, I put my hearing protection on, what I've done is I've reduced my exposure to danger. I've reduced the risk that I'm going to take of hurting my hearing. And now I can even just go out and plink, just recreational shooting that has no training value whatsoever. All of a sudden I can do that in complete safety because I've lowered the risk by wearing my hearing protection. The benefit that I get from that activity, in this case recreation, now substantially exceeds the risk that I take, the hearing damage, because I'm wearing my hearing protection. Now, let's take that same situation. I'm out at the range, I'm practicing with my concealed carry handgun, I've got my ear protection on. The benefit of my practice substantially outweighs the risk that I take now. What if I leave the range and I'm going home and I stop at a gas station, for instance, and I'm held up at gunpoint. I'm forced to draw my gun and shoot my attacker. I hope that never happens, but let's say it does. And do I stop to put on my hearing protection because I know that I will damage my hearing by shooting this man who's attacking me? Well, of course not. I don't carry my hearing protection with me when I've got my concealed carry handgun. And what I'm going to do, I'm not going to stop and put in earplugs or anything. I'm going to deal with the threat. Now it's exactly the same risk. It's exactly the same danger. The danger of the loud noise and the risk of my hearing loss are exactly the same as they were when I was on the range. But now the benefit of using that gun, which is keeping this guy from hurting or killing me, substantially outweighs the risk that I took by shooting my gun without hearing protection. So exactly the same danger, exactly the same risk changes this ratio of benefit to risk changes, even though it's the same risk. The benefit of anything that we do in a training environment has to substantially outweigh the risk that we take in doing it. The same goes through in a training course, and we get back to this situation where we had the police officers who thought they had blanks loaded in their guns. In the case of the one where the woman was killed, was there a value to having the blanks in the gun? Well, it's pretty hard to argue that there's a substantial value to it. And so because there's relatively little value to doing something simply with blanks, we have to work very, very hard to reduce the risk to the point that it is substantially exceeded by that relatively small value. And we would have to go through a lot of stuff to make sure that there was no live ammo in the area. We'd have to sterilize the area. We'd have to pat down people who are entering the area. We'd have to have people guarding the entrances to make sure, all this kind of stuff that you have to do to make that activity safe. Whenever you're in a training class, if you're an instructor, whenever you're holding a training class, you need to look at safety from the standpoint of risk and benefit. The benefit of anything that you do, the benefit of anything that you have your students do, the benefit of anything that your instructor asks you to do has to greatly exceed the risk that you assume in doing it. If you're not sure about it, you need to ask your instructor. Ask him or her, what are the safety protocols that are going to reduce the risk? What's the benefit, the benefit, the compelling benefit that will greatly exceed the risk we're taking in doing it? And if you don't feel that ratio is comfortable, if you don't feel that the benefit has greatly exceeded the risk, you need to not participate in it. And it's okay to do that. I've certainly walked out of exercises where I didn't feel that that the benefit outweighed the risk. And I've encouraged others to do so as well. And in fact, I've even encouraged others to not participate ahead of time because I suspected that the benefit would not outweigh the risk. Safety is a concept. The benefit of anything that we do has to greatly exceed the risk that we take in doing it. Had the people in these three instances understood that concept and taken the proper safety precautions that make that work, perhaps these people wouldn't have been hurt. Or in this particular case, in two of these cases, people might not have been killed. I think it's important to talk about this all the time. I think it's important to call out those instructors who obviously don't understand this idea of safety and what it means. And I think it's important for you as a student to call them out on it as well. So that's my rant for this week about safety. And it's been kind of an awful week with all this stuff coming down. And anyhow, let's talk a little bit about the Personal Defense Network newsletter. You've heard me talk about this before, and I want to show you this. And I don't think I've actually, for those of you who maybe don't get the Personal Defense Network newsletter, here is what it looks like. There we go. And I'm going to bring this up here so you can see it. And here's the Personal Defense Network newsletter. This is the free newsletter that comes out every week that you sign up for. And it comes out, you get it in your email box completely free and tells you what's going on at Personal Defense Network. This one came today, 8/18. You can see the date there. This is today's wire from the Personal Defense Network. There's a new featured article for less lethal defense tools. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to. Looks like a pretty good article. That's a Taser C2. Great less than lethal defense tool, particularly in those areas where maybe you can't carry a gun. Oh, look at this. Rob Pincus has got a new video out and talking about establishing a defensive mindset, protecting the people you love. That's important. I'm going to have to watch that. Now, Cecil Birch has got one, Understanding His Self-Defense Keychain. I haven't watched this one either, and I like Cecil Birch a lot. Cecil's a great guy. He's an expert, and the newsletter told me that he's got this new video out. And tells, oh, look, big class sale. The classes are on sale right now. And, oh, there's a new premium video. We'll talk about premium membership later, but a new premium video, self-defense tools, types of chemical agents. And, oh, well, who's that guy? He looks familiar. Yeah, that's the announcement of tonight's Training Talk episode. So you get all this stuff, all this information in the free Personal Defense Network newsletter. You can sign up for it very easily. If you're watching the show here on the PDN site, there should be a link down there. I think I put a link down there to sign up directly. Just click on that and you can go to it and sign up. Easy to get on, easy to get off, and it comes free in your mailbox every week. There are over 300,000 people. I'm not kidding. Over 300,000 people get this every week in their mailbox, and they get that information. So cool service here from Personal Defense Network. So now I want to get to our first viewer email. And this is an interesting one because the guy I'm reading this here, a fellow wrote in to complain about the pay-to-shoot indoor range. I don't know if that's the name of it or not. I hope it isn't. About his pay-to-shoot indoor range. Apparently, it's a commercial range that people go and they rent time by the hour, like a lot of commercial ranges do. And but it's very restrictive, as a lot of these ranges are. A lot of these ranges don't allow you to draw from holster. Some don't allow rapid fire, and they have varying degrees of what constitutes rapid fire. I've seen some of them that don't allow speed reloads, all kinds of stuff. And he's got apparently one of these relatively restricted ranges that he goes to. And he said that he would love to get someplace where he can actually practice relevant defensive shooting skills. And apparently he's got he asked me what he should do. And I got online, I asked where he was, and I got online and located a couple of gun clubs that were actually closer. One of them was closer to him than this pay to shoot range that he goes to. And I said, that would be a very good alternative, join the gun club. And he said he didn't want to join the club because it was too expensive. And so and keep in mind, this actually came in as a private message over Facebook. And so I went to his Facebook page, and I hope he doesn't mind that I'm talking about him, but he talks about all the new guns he's buying. Hey, that's great and all that kind of thing. But I told him, okay, I understand that joining a gun club is expensive. Sell a gun and join a gun club, because the benefit of being able to practice your realistic, relevant self-defense skills, I think exceeds the gun that you're going to have to sell to get that that membership. Now, if you're kind of in the same situation where you're looking for a place to practice your realistic, relevant self-defense shooting skills, and you're having an issue because the range that you're using doesn't allow that, well, where do you go to find it? Where do you go to find a place where you can? Well, my little trick for this is to get onto the websites either for the United States Practical Shooting Association, or I think the International Defensive Pistol Association has the same service, but I know that the USPSA does. And look for ranges that hold USPSA or IDPA matches. Now, both of those matches involve people moving, they involve drawing from the holster, they involve rapid fire. So the ranges that have these matches are going to allow those activities to occur. So that's sort of how you weed them out very, very quickly. And so if you go find the ranges that are holding these matches and find out, and I know at the USPSA site, you can search by state. And that's how I found this guy's, the ranges that were around this fellow. And you can find the ranges that you can do this stuff at, and then go join. Yeah, it costs some money. I understand that. I understand that money's tight these days. It is for everybody. If you need to, sell a gun, because being able to practice, I think, is more important than having things that you can show off to your shooting buddies. And trust me, you'll find another gun that you want at some point and buy that too. But getting a membership in a range where you can actually do these things, where you can actually practice the skills that might save your life, I think is an important thing. So check out the sites that are hosting USPSA and IDPA matches. Check those out and find one near you and go join. And quite frankly, become involved, because a lot of these clubs need volunteers. That's how they run. And volunteer, do things, make the club better, and you'll have access to generally much better facilities than you do even at a really nice commercial range. And you'll be able to have some freedom to practice what you need to practice. So that's my tip for this fellow about dealing with ranges that you can't do much on. I got and now this one was an email, and this one's kind of funny. And the fellow asked me about carrying a defensive handgun while under the influence. And I said this fellow's from Colorado because, as you may know, Colorado, about a year or two ago, decriminalized marijuana in the state. My own state of Oregon did the same thing last year. And he wants to know about concealed carry while under the influence of pot. And understand, first of all, that I've never taken any drugs in my life, so I cannot talk about this from firsthand experience. However, I did some research, talked to some people, and what it comes down to is that any substance that that you put in your body that makes you feel good is going to do several things. Now, I'm sure that the marijuana advocates out there are probably going to write me nasty emails about how marijuana is less dangerous than alcohol. Don't really care about that. What I really care about is what it does in the short term, what it does when you're actually using it. And realistically, marijuana slows reaction time. It can impair judgment of time and distance, and it does decrease coordination. Now, when we talk about being under the influence, there are some things about being under the influence of alcohol that are worse than marijuana. I get that. But when we're talking about dealing with a firearm and dealing with safety and all that kind of thing, slowed reaction times, impaired judgment of time and distance, and decreased coordination are all bad things. My recommendation to him was that he consider being under the influence of marijuana, at least in terms of having a concealed handgun, the same as being under the influence of alcohol or being under the influence of certain prescription medications. I would say the same thing for some people who are taking prescription medications that impair their judgment or the coordination or their reaction times. I would say the same things. Having a gun on your person it carries with it a lot of responsibility. It carries with it some horrendous consequences if used inappropriately. And so I would say concealed carry while using marijuana, don't do it. Just do the same thing you would do if you were under alcohol. Lock the gun away. If once the pot comes out, the guns get locked away. This is generally my rule when alcohol is involved. Once the beer comes out, the guns get locked away. And enjoy yourself. I'm not one of those people that really cares what you do in the privacy of your own home. If you want to enjoy yourself, hey, great. If you want to have a drink, if you want to, partake in that, and it's legal in your state, go ahead, do it. Just be safe doing it. Don't be carrying a gun whenever you're under the influence of anything. And as I said, that goes for prescription medications too. If you are taking prescription medications and you know that they affect your judgment or your reaction times or your coordination, lock the gun away. It's better to be safe than sorry, I think. So that was my answer to him. And given the number of states right now that are legalizing marijuana, I'm sure this question is going to come up again. Like I said, my own state of Oregon has, I believe my neighboring state of Washington has legalized it. And it wouldn't surprise me if several other states did in the next election cycle. So particularly if you're an instructor, you're probably going to be seeing this more and more as people get used to the idea that this is now legal and available and they partake in it. So I think this is the responsible answer to that question. All right, a little earlier when I showed you the Personal Defense Network newsletter, there was that one premium video that it showed. I'm going to go back and see what it is again. Oh yeah, video on chemical agents for self-defense, which I'm a premium member, so I'm going to watch that here probably this weekend. And the great thing about Personal Defense Network premium membership is that you've got access to all kinds of exclusive premium member videos like this one on chemical agents that are not on the public side of Personal Defense Network. Now, if you've spent any time here on the site, you know that Personal Defense Network, the public side of Personal Defense Network, has just tons of free articles and free videos for you to watch. You can spend all kinds of time here just watching the public stuff. On the premium side, we have the extended videos. We have the video playlists that gather together specific topics so that you have all the videos for those topics in one place so you can watch them and get an education. Of course, you've got access to a lot of the classes, the full-length videos that we have. There's just a ton of information on the premium membership side of the site. Now, normally premium membership is, I think it's $34.95 a year, something like that. And how would you like to try it out for only $10 for your first year? $10 for your first full year of premium membership, and that's full access. It's not some sort of limited premium membership. It's full premium membership for $10 for your first year. And you can get that by signing up for premium membership. Go to the site and click on the sign up for premium membership buttons that are all over the site. And when you get to checkout, put in the code GRANT10. That's GRANT, the number 1 and the number 0. All one word, GRANT10 at checkout, and you'll get your first year for only $10. And it's, I think it's 72% off or something like that. And it's a great deal. Gets you a chance to get in, try premium membership, see if it's for you, see if you like it, and I think you will. I think first of all, you'll spend tons of time looking at all the great information there, and you'll learn a lot from Personal Defense Network premium membership. So definitely take advantage of that. GRANT10, GRANT, the number 1 and the number 0, all one word. So I want to talk for just a couple of minutes here about a situation that happened here in the last week in North Carolina. Now, there was a report of an active shooter at a mall in North Carolina, and apparently the police responded. Now, we should point out that there was actually no active shooter there. It was a false alarm, but the police responded as they should, and they were making entry into the mall, and apparently a citizen drove up, got out of his pickup with a rifle in his hand, and asked the cops if they needed help. And they performed the indicated response, which was to draw their guns on him and tell him to get down on his face, because they didn't know if this was the active shooter they were looking for. They didn't know anything about this guy. Apparently he had heard on the radio or something that this was happening, and he was determined that he was going to go help. And it did not turn out well for him. And I want to talk about this for a minute because there's a lot of talk going on about responding to an active shooter incident. And I know a lot of people have started carrying rifles in their cars and lots of ammunition just in case they have to respond to an active shooter incident. Here's the thing. If you're caught inside during an active shooter incident, the chances are probably about 99-1 that you're going to solve the problem with whatever you have on your person. You're not going to have time to run out of the mall, get into your car, get your rifle, and go back into the mall. By that time, the police will probably be arriving, and they're going to be seeing a man with a gun running into the mall. And the chances of you getting shot are actually quite high. Reality is that if you're in the mall when the shooting starts and you have your concealed carry handgun, that's what you're going to use to deal with the situation. If you hear that there's an active shooter incident and you decide that you're going to respond because you've got this rifle in your trunk and you're going to respond, you're going to probably end up very much like this fellow did. If the police need your help, they'll ask for it. Don't show up to a scene and volunteer to help, particularly when you've got a rifle in your hands, and particularly if you're dressed with camo pants like this fellow was. You're probably not going to be looked at as a good Samaritan or as a wonderful citizen. They're probably going to look at you as part of the threat, as they should. They don't know who you are. You don't have a badge and a uniform on, and you're not driving a car with red and blue lights on it. They don't know who you are. For all they know, you could be the active shooter. So that's not a good response. If you're carrying a rifle around in your car because of an active shooter, you think you might respond to an active shooter incident, don't take it out of the trunk. If you might volunteer the rifle to the police who maybe don't have one, say, hey, I've got a rifle in my truck if you want it, that's okay. And that might happen. It certainly happened in California at a bank robbery a number of years ago. A lot of people are familiar with that. But don't just automatically get in your trunk, grab your rifle, and go running in to help, because that's not going to be very helpful. And this fellow down in North Carolina learned that the hard way. Unfortunately, the police put him on the ground and arrested him, took him away. And I haven't heard if he was released or if he was charged. I have no idea, but that's something you really don't want to happen to you. Now, I know there are going to be a lot of people who are mad at me for saying this. There are going to be a lot of people who are really convinced that they're kitted out and ready to go for an active shooter incident. But like so many other things in the personal defense world and in the self-defense world, you're probably going to solve the problem with what you have on your body at the time the problem happens. And that means you're probably not going to run out to your car to get that rifle or that shotgun and that bandolier full of ammunition or the chest harness, all that kind of thing. Again, we get back to realistic and responsible self-defense, which is what the show is all about. And showing up, rifle in hand, camo pants, running up to a mall during an active shooter incident probably isn't that responsible thing to be doing. So anyhow, that's what I've got to say about that. And I'm waiting now. We're going to have a guest expert on here in just a few minutes. And let's see here. I need to find him and tell him to check in now. So we can get him here. I talked earlier about self-defense being more than shooting bad guys. And self-defense includes keeping fit. And as I mentioned, I'm trying to lose some weight. I'm trying to get in better shape because I understand that being fit, being defensively fit is important. It's important to not only being able to deal with an attack, but it's also important from just quite frankly, longevity. Again, self-defense is more than shooting bad guys, and taking care of your health and making sure that you live a long and prosperous life is part of self-defense. As I said, I'm the wrong guy to be talking about this. I mean, come on, look at me, right? But luckily, I do know an expert who I'm going to bring on the show here in just a minute. Now, I met this young fellow, and I say young because he's a lot younger than I am. But I met this fellow when he was fresh out of the military after serving our country in 2 tours of duty in Iraq. He's a graduate of the Army's sniper school and today is a full-time firefighter. Now, this guy's done a lot of stuff. It's amazing. Somebody so young doing so much. I didn't do this much when I was his age, but he's a CrossFit level 1 trainer, a USA weightlifting level 1 coach. That's pretty darn cool. And as I said, he's currently a full-time firefighter in his home state of Arkansas. And for the last several years has spent all of his free time providing fitness coaching for people who need that. So welcome to the, by the way, he's got the greatest last name in the world. So welcome to the show, Tyler Grant. How are you, Tyler?
I'm good, Grant. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on the show to talk tonight about this, because as I said, this is a topic that I don't know a lot about, and you're the guy to answer the questions. So if you don't mind answering some questions about this tonight and telling us about fitness.
Let's do it.
Cool. So let's talk. And I wanted, because I had this conversation, and I wanted to talk about defensive fitness, because we're talking, I mean, this is Personal Defense Network. So defensive fitness, what is defensive fitness and why is it important?
That term's thrown out there a lot, along with tactical fitness. And, I think that the more correct term to use, or probably the correct term to use, is general PP or GPP, general physical preparedness. That's what people really need to spend their majority of their time working on instead of trying to specialize. See a lot of guys that, hey, I'm on the, like, I want to get in shape. I want to, but in this context, I'm going to put a plate carrier on, do some ruck marches, and do some cool stuff, but that's not what they really need to do, because they either no longer live that life where they wear a plate carrier, or that's not. I mean, there's other things you can do that's a lot more efficient to get in shape a lot better. And and the biggest thing is, what I want people to do with GPP, I want them to be able to lift heavy things, have them be able to lift it many times, be able to keep their heart rate up for a long time, be able to move their body weight in many different ways, and be able to breathe hard for a long time.
So that's kind of interesting. I like the way that you put that about preparedness, because that's kind of the underlying, theme about what we talk about here at Personal Defense Network is really preparedness every day, being prepared every day, right? And so now you talked about being able to not just lift heavy things, but also being able to sustain an elevated heart rate for a period of time. And it's interesting you say that, because I don't think that, first of all, I don't think most people understand how quickly criminal attacks happen, but I also don't think that most people comprehend how physically intense a fight can be. And so when you talk about, sustained heart rate, aren't you talking about being able to deal with this physically intense fight?
Yeah, and to answer your question in a little bit different way, a lot of people, they don't understand the human body and what happens when you just have a startle flinch, or some type of reaction where you get a big adrenaline dump. Your heart goes crazy because this chemical that your body produces is saying, hey, something's about to happen. I feel like I may be hurt or may die, so I'm going to pump this drug through my system to make me more human than human. We get, our heart races, our capillaries, our veins and our arteries constrict a little bit in our appendages and whatnot. We get more blood flow to the center field of our vision, and we process information, visual information, differently. And I know we talked about some of that in the combat focused shooting program, but just on that aspect alone, being more physically fit, you are able to prepare for, your body is better prepared just for that alone, just being startled. I know there's been times where I've heard a truck backfire, or just had a spider or a bee near my ear, and I get that adrenaline dump because I feel like it's a big giant monster going to attack and eat me. But for a majority of people that don't train on the physical fitness, that's a lot harder on them than it has to be, and your body does it naturally. There's nothing you can do to fight it. And also on the other end of that, majority of people, they've never been in a physical altercation, either in real life or some type of modern combat, or modern sporting combat. Okay, like MMA, BJJ, throw some Krav in there, stuff like that. But more of the almost anything goes, but there's rules there for safety. Also with that reality-based training and force on force, so they get that adrenaline dump. The last couple weeks ago, I friends with Craig Douglas, and he invited me to take his Edge Weapons Overview, and that's a very intense physical class. And one of the guys, that was the first time he'd ever been punched in the face. And he had a big, he didn't know what was happening to his body of that adrenaline dump. So, and he talked about how he needs to be, better in shape and lift more heavy things and whatnot. But he didn't know what was happening to his body. He thought something was wrong. So when you're able to control your body more with just simply working out, it makes everything easier for that worst case scenario. So that's one less thing you actually have to worry about.
So your body's going to do this whether you want it to or not. And so being in general physical shape helps you to not only withstand what's happening, right?
Yes.
but also to take advantage of it. Is that true?
Oh, definitely. And mainly going on just the body's reaction. I was assuming, but I didn't explicitly say that. That's just, let's say it's something outside of 2 arms reach. Basically, the person's not touching you. They have to use something that sends a projectile at you. Now let's talk about a conflict with at 1 arm's reach or within 1 arm's reach, where you actually have to physically move someone else's body weight. That's a big deal. A lot of people don't realize that or even think about it because they have a tool on them, and it becomes a talisman of, I won't do this. I'll just run away. I'll just shoot the guy, and those two things aren't always going to be the answer. More likely, that's not going to be the answer unless it absolutely is. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, finish what you were saying.
And going into the within 1 arm's reach stuff, conditioning of just for general preparedness and fighting conditioning are two different things upon themselves. So guys and gals, they've been able to do all the other stuff I said before, lift heavy things and breathe hard and all the other jazz, but it also needs to be some type of specialized training where you are trying to manipulate someone else's body and be able to stay calm, be able to breathe and collect your thoughts while doing it, so you don't try to dump all your energy and your strength within 10-15 seconds and you're completely gassed. Because generally, anytime you see a new guy doing some type of martial art that requires to move someone else's body weight, they go spastic, and after 3 minutes they are completely wiped out.
Wow.
And that's in a control setting of, we're going to touch hands. If something happens and we don't want to go anymore, we'll tap them or say ouch, and it's over. And it's not, your life's not on the line. So again, it's the best thing we can do to help prepare ourselves. But again, it's still a control setting, and it's safe in the relative scheme of things.
In the last week, I found an article that was written about how to escape from a rear chokehold, and there were a lot of things sort of wrong with the article, and I sent a note to I think Cecil Birch, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and I sent a note to him and I said, hey, what do you think about this? And he wrote back that a long diatribe about what has to happen, and he pointed out that, listen, it's a lot of work to get out of one of these things, because you have to get the guy's arm from around your neck, and then you have to entangle one of his legs, and you need to move his body weight basically off of you. And man, that's a lot of work. I mean, you were talking about moving 200 pounds of a human being who's resisting you.
It's just not necessarily their body weight, and it's also the force that they're applying with their body weight. So someone who weighs 200 pounds, whatever strength they have, add X amount of weight to that. And going back to what to that article you're talking about, I see so much silly stuff on social media about do this, do that if you're in this scenario. Again, videos are pretty sterile. You can't always get the context of it, but some of them you can just tell and right off they're pretty silly. And everything's easy if there's equal initiative, right?
Right.
You give me permission to do this, I'm going to do my moves. You're going to comply with me, and it looks awesome, looks easy, and it makes whoever's doing it look great. But that's not how it does until there's actually some type of resistance.
Okay.
The person doesn't know what they're going to experience.
Okay, so people need this. People need to be able to withstand physically withstand the attack. Where would you start? Where would you advise? I'm not talking about where would you start, because you're already in great physical shape, but where would you advise someone to start developing good physical fitness? What's the first thing people can do to become healthier?
The first thing is it's some of the stuff's going to sound silly, but it needs to be said. First off, drink water. Okay, a lot of people there you go. A lot of people stay in a constant state of dehydration, and if something actually happens where you're driving out in the middle of nowhere and you need to go walk a mile. Let's talk about just situations like that. And that's not necessarily I'm being attacked. Well, you may get to that place, and if it's a hot summer day, which it's been roasting hot here in Arkansas, so a lot of people, they may need to call EMS because they're in they're very dehydrated, and they need, saline and other things else in their body just to perform. So drinking water is always a good thing. Okay, and also it's a change of lifestyle of their diet, not going on a diet, but changing their diet. Going on a diet is, and again, that diet's used wrong majority of the time. A diet is what you eat. It's whatever you eat. That's your diet, and that needs to change. Generally, when people go on a diet and they don't actually change what they eat globally, they generally gain the weight back plus some. So let's focus on taking bad things we eat now and take them out. Okay, just because something says organic doesn't mean it's good. I was walking through Walmart today, doing some grocery shopping. I saw a dark chocolate, like organic dark chocolate bars or whatever. Hey, it's great that it's organic, but just because it says organic doesn't mean it's good for you. Okay.
So what you're telling me is those organic donuts are not good, right?
Unless they're paleo. Paleo is always good, right?
Okay, right.
Yeah, I'm just totally kidding about that. But eat real food, and when you eat real food, generally you need to prepare it. And I had a hard time with this when I first became a bachelor. Way back years ago. I'm not going to go in full detail, but I had to start preparing food for myself, and I no longer had someone preparing food for me. I did a lot of skillet meals. I felt terrible all the time. I hurt. My body I just felt sick all the time until I started, I got a cookbook and I started cooking through it. Now, I don't say that I enjoy cooking, but I can cook, and my meals always taste really well, or taste really good. And they're generally healthy. Some are more than others, but if you cook real food, if you go to a grocery store, generally stay on the outside of the aisles. Never try not to go in. It's simple things like that. Cook chicken. Cook leaner meats. I'll go. I have a list I'm going to go down so I don't jump back and forth. And shop in the outsides of the aisle. If you go inside the aisles, it's all the prepackaged stuff. It's the stuff that has a lot of preservatives in it. That lasts for 2-3 years in a box. It's probably not the best thing for you. I'm not saying cut all that stuff out, but just cut it down. It's not that big of a deal unless you have a lot of serious health issues. If you have like diabetes and things like that, that's kind of a bigger deal. You need to take what you're eating, what you put in your body a lot more seriously. And what we see a lot on the fire department side of diabetic emergencies, people either are taking their medication and not eating, or just not eating at all, or you're eating and not taking their medication, or taking the medication and not eating. So it's either side. And this is a simple thing, but it sounds trivial. Don't shop when you're hungry. Okay. So you don't buy just total garbage. I didn't really eat breakfast this morning, not because that's a thing I do. I was just lazy when I got up. I got busy working on a new class I'm making. I just didn't eat, and I went to store hungry. And oh man, those gummy bears and vanilla wafers look so good, but I had to say no. All right. Another thing is you need to educate yourself on general nutrition, and I'm not the best guy for nutrition, but I know the big picture wise. You need to have a balance of macronutrients of protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And fats has always been a controversial topic because everything's always, you want fat-free this, fat-free that, and people don't realize your body needs fat to live. I forget the guy's name. It's a YouTube video he was interviewed on Barbell Shrug. I feel bad because I'm going to quote him and not give him credit, but it's like telling someone, it's like telling your wife, "Hey, honey, you need to try this new lipstick or makeup. It looks really good." And she asks, "What's it called?" And it's called ugly, but it's a good kind of ugly. All right. So there are good fats. Okay.
Right.
Generally, if you eat fats that are natural, basically, if you kind of eat the leaner meats, that's generally not a bad idea. It's a good place to start. But the healthy fats, the omega-3, the fish oils, olive oil, the fats from I like grass-fed butter, coconut oil, things like that. You cook in your food. One, it gives fats is flavor, and also fats is also used as fuel, which people don't understand. And let's go back to the carbohydrates. You need to eat carbohydrates. And again, the best we can, let's use things that grow out of the ground, excluding wheat. I'm not saying don't cut out wheat all out of your diet, because I like bread and sandwiches every now and again, but all the vegetables you want, pretty much. I'm sure there's some that probably aren't the best for you, but generally, same vegetables are good. Fruits, eat fruits, but don't go overboard with that, because that's just pure sugar. It's not sustainable energy, and that's what we want throughout the day. If you ever get a point after you eat lunch, generally when people eat lunch, you want to crash right afterwards, because they had an insulin spike, all that sugar that they ate. And there's sugar in everything that we eat now, and mainly in restaurant, like you go to restaurants and fast foods like that. Even like French fries and ground beef have sugar in it. Plan out your meals, meal prep. Okay. And a lot of people say I'm too busy for that. You're a poor planner. Okay. When I was going to the fire academy, I had a meal plan because I was living outside of my home. I went every weekend. Went home for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. That's all I did. I made every single meal I was going to eat for that week. That's a good way to start, or it is a way to start. But you may need to kind of ease your way into it after you kind of change your diet. But yeah, plan out your meals. Actually plan what you need to do and set yourself up for success, instead of, oh, I'm hungry, I don't really have a whole lot of food. You know what? Screw it. It's just this one time I'll order a pizza. I'm not saying pizza every now and again is bad, but everything adds up. If if little by little you go off of what you're trying to do, you're going to add weight. You're going to become unhealthier. Okay. And healthy to some people is relative, but if you go get blood tests, and everything else, check your cholesterol and all other jazz that all the doctory people know, a lot smarter than me know, that's a good matrix to use. And just mainly how you feel. If you feel bad all the time, you're probably eating bad things. And if you're eating things that make you feel better, why not do that? Feeling good is great.
So the first step is to eat well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got about 4 minutes here.
Okay.
So let's say they're eating well, they're all that kind of thing. They're eating good, healthy food. What's the next step? Where can the average person go to learn to become fit and to be able to move well and all that stuff that you were talking about?
So we go to training classes, learn how to punch people in the face, how to defend ourselves with a firearm, and things like that, right? We can do the same thing, become more in shape. I'm a CrossFit coach. That's always the number one thing I'll recommend. I've done other things, and for the grand scheme of things, for general physical preparedness, CrossFit is a good. A lot of people don't like it because it's still newer versus what's traditionally taught. I get it, but do some research. Try it out for a month. If you see if it's for you, and if that doesn't work out for you, fine. Go try some strength and conditioning where you're going to lift heavy things. But I will say this: doing something is better than nothing. So if you're going to jazzercise or Zumba, it literally, if you're just walking a mile or two every day, that is better than sitting on your couch and staying stagnant and watching whatever's on TV after you get off work. Because if all you're doing is, if you're eating the total time more than you're working out a day, you're going to gain weight and generally become unhealthier.
I'm glad that you mentioned, starting by walking. I think that's pretty accessible for a lot of people. Everybody can get out and walk someplace, and you don't really need a gym for that, right? I mean, you can get out. In fact, after they get done watching the show, they can go out and start walking, right?
They can do push-ups, they can do sit-ups, they can do burpees, they can step on things, and all that stuff doesn't cost any money. Running, jumping, moving, push-ups, sit-ups, all the other jazz. That doesn't cost a thing. Just start doing something. Literally, it's one of the, I know we teach in the defensive realm, some things aren't also necessarily better than doing nothing, because they can teach a lot of bad things, a lot of overconfidence. But in the fitness realm, if you're doing something that's making your muscles work, you're getting a sweat, and you're breathing hard, you are better off if you didn't do those things. And I will say this too: if people are having a hard time saying that they can't afford something, make a budget. Know what you're spending every month down to the penny, and see if you can cut some things out that you're doing. I've had people say, "Hey, I can't afford one of your shooting classes." Well, how many times to Starbucks do you go a week? They go 3 times a day. Well, quit doing that, and you can afford a class. So generally, if you're dedicated, the money's there. You have to find it and be an adult and say no to some things.
I always tell people, and people have heard me say that have been watching the show, have heard me say this: don't let what you can't do interfere with what you can do. And I know a lot of people will say, well, I can't afford to join a gym yet, so I won't get in shape. And that's just not an excuse.
But
right?
They need cable.
Right, exactly. So, if you truly maybe can't afford a gym, or there's just not one nearby, at least get out, right, and start walking and running and
do something.
Taking the stairs instead of the elevator. All that kind of thing.
It's the little things add up. And I will say this: the great thing about CrossFit, they have a lot of great material for free. And generally, when something's free, it's not that good. Yeah, you can Google CrossFit Level 1 Trainer's Guide, and it has diet plans, it has movements that you can do, and how to actually make a workout regimen, or actually how to do programming in there. And it's when I read that, it's like, this is awesome. This is almost a one-stop shop. I don't agree necessarily 100% of what they teach, but on the grand scheme of things, that's great. It's awesome. And it's free. All you can do is Google it.
In fact, I just Googled CrossFit Level 1 Training Guide, and right there it is. I'm going to download it.
I've read it twice. I need to read it again, but it's probably over 100 pages of free content, and they update it pretty much almost every year now.
So folks, you have no excuse. There's no flipping excuse now.
The funny thing is, we know Ian Strimbick, right? I posted a video on his wall. There's a guy that had his heart removed and has an artificial heart that he has to wear in a backpack. The guy's a fitness model, so there is no excuse.
Whoa!
Yeah, like the guy has heart, but he doesn't physiologically have a heart, and he still trains. So when people says something, this hurts, like I still have kind of a broken pinky toe. I'm still in the gym doing what I can when I can, because I understand this little battles that I win ultimately gets me over that hill, over that obstacle that I'm facing right now.
Okay, Tyler, really quick, 30 seconds. Tell us how people can find you and get in touch with you.
The easiest way is probably email dynamictrainingstrategies@gmail.com. Like my Facebook page, just go into Facebook, Dynamic Training Strategies, Instagram, DT Strategies. Also my weightlifting stuff, Kratos Barbell, also on Instagram. I got blogs on my website, so dynamictrainingstrategies.com, and the Training Evolution on YouTube. I'm starting to do a lot more videos now and more blogs since I have more free time. So that's all the places you can find me. Okay.
Your audio just went away, so we're out of time anyway. So thank you for coming on, and I hope we can have you on again soon to talk more about personal fitness. Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. All right, guys, we're just about done. We've got just a few seconds here left. Don't forget the deal on Personal Defense Network premium membership for $10 for your first year. Sign up. Use the code GRANT10, GRANT10, all one word, and get your first year for $10. Don't forget the free Personal Defense Network newsletter comes out every week. Sign up for that. Get advance notice of everything that happens, including this show. And speaking of the show, our next show is going to be the first Thursday of September, which happens to be the 1st. And so I'll look forward to seeing you then. We'll have a special guest for an extended conversation, and you won't want to miss that. Be sure and watch us. You can watch me. You can send me email, grant@grantcunningham.com. Of course, check out the Personal Defense Network Facebook page. Check out my Facebook page and my site, grantcunningham.com. Keep those emails coming. Love to answer the questions whenever we can on the show. So thank you again, everybody. Thanks to my special guest expert tonight, Tyler Grant. And we'll see you next month. Good night, everybody.